Other divine leelas of Baba. So now I will narrate the other divine leelas of Baba. Maharajji's divine leelas are so diverse that they do not readily fit into categories. Some reveal his divine attributes, some his kindness and love, and others his humor and close association with those around him. The Leela in this chapter describe conversation carried out with Baba, dreams in which he appeared, and journeys taken by him. Many reflect the unpredictable nature of Baba as well as the inexpressible joy of being in his company. A journey with Baba. Once Maharaj talked of taking some devotees to have darshan of Badrinath and Gangotri. Baba asked Tuluram Shah to go with Sri Ma to the house of Hiralal Shah Habba at Pauri Garhwal, saying, I shall meet you there. He arranged for many other devotees to gather at Habba's house, but he himself did not arrive. After staying for about a week, Tukaram Shah thought of leaving Pauri, partly because he felt uncomfortable staying so long at Habba's house, and partly because of his disappointment that Baba did not arrive. Whenever he wanted to leave, however, a telegram would come from Baba informing them of his arrival, so nobody could go back home. One day Baba did arrive and a bhandara was arranged. Many local people came for prasad. Basant Lal, Habba's son, said that they did not have to organize anything extra for it. The monthly provision for his family was sufficient to meet the requirement of hospitality and the bhandara. The next morning, Baba ordered everyone to continue the journey to Badrinath. However, there was only one bus in Pauri and it had an engine problem. Though the driver could not get permission to drive the bus for such long distance, he agreed to take them as far as to Srinagar. When they reached Srinagar, they found there was no buses there either. Baba stayed on the bus they had arrived in and insisted, We will go on this bus. Though the bus was not in the proper condition and could have broken down any time, the police gave permission for its use. In those days, the buses did not go all the way to Badrinath. They only went to Joshimath. The bus took them safely to Joshimath, but on its return, it damaged in an accident in Kotdwar, a town along the way. To the amazement of the driver and conductor, no one was injured. From Joshimath, the devotees arranged two dandies to go to Badrinath, one for Baba and the other for Basant Lal, 2.5-year-old son, who would have been difficult to carry on the long climb ahead. The dandy bearers were frightened when they saw Baba's huge body and said, Does this fat man also require a dandy? The devotees did not want Baba to go on foot and were ready to give the dandy bearers whatever fare they wanted, but the men still would not agree to carry Baba. At last, they reached a compromise. The cunning porters carrying the child's dandy said they would change places with those carrying Baba's dandy along the route, though they did not plan to take their turn at the agreed interchange. The dandy in which Baba was sitting went ahead swiftly. Porters did not feel Baba's weight at all. They felt as if they were carrying an empty dandy. Porters who were carrying the dandy in which the child was sitting trailed behind as they struggled to bear the weight. They were surprised at how heavy the child was, but were too ashamed to admit it and kept quiet. Eventually, when they were not able to bear the weight any further, they had to admit what was happening. The child's parents did not believe them, but they made the child walk for some distance. Baba had gone very far ahead, so he got the porters to stop and wait for the rest of the party. When the porters carrying Baba's dandy were asked to change with the other porters, they refused. Then the child insisted on sitting with Baba. Baba allowed him to sit in his dandy, which further complicated matters, as the porters refused to carry both of them on one dandy. Baba persuaded them to try, and when they lifted, they found it as light as before. They reached Badrinath easily with the child's dandy carried there empty. On their arrival, Baba got all the devotees to stay at Kali Kamli Dharamshala, and he himself stayed at Badrivan and Habaji. There were no settlement at Badrinath in those days. It was rough, rugged, and desolate. Every morning, Srimani Munni Devi, Basant Lal's wife, asked to take a bath in the hot spring with Srima. Afterwards, Srima would leave to Badriman, and Munni Devi would return to the Dharamshala to give the devotees tea. Then, after having darshan of Badri Vishal, she would also go to Badrivan to have Baba's darshan. Baba gave all the visitors malpua to eat. One day, when Srimati Munni went to Baba, he said, "You did not have Badrinath's darshan today?" As she had already had darshan, she kept quiet. Baba then said, "Go and have darshan again." Due to the number of people waiting, the time that one would stay in the temple was limited. However, none of Baba's devotees were asked to move on. When Munni arrived again at the temple instead of Badrinath's deity, she saw Baba enshrined there. She stared motionless at the spectacle. After sending her to the temple, Baba also sent her father-in-law Habba to have darshan. He was standing near her, and he also had Baba's darshan in place of Badrinath Murti for a long time. Tears flowed from his eyes. Sometimes later, both of them returned to Baba, and Habba said, "Sarkar, you have made us run there for nothing. We had your darshan in that Murti, as we have had your darshan here." They all left Badrinath, and on their way to Gangotri, Baba sat at a place by the Bhagirathi river. He said to Habba, "In Satyug, this was the Ganga of milk." Habba replied, "Sarkar, it is even now," to which Baba said, "Do you ever see a river of milk?" Habba answered, "Sarkar, while with you, it is seen as that of milk." Baba asked him to bring a tumbler full of Ganga water and a handful of sand. Habba brought them. When he opened his hand, the particles of sand had changed into precious stones, and the water was milk. Maharaj told him to distribute these gems among the devotees, but Habba did not agree. He felt that gems had no values in comparison to the grace of Maharaj. With Baba's permission, he consigned the gems to the Ganges. Later in the afternoon, they reached Gangotri, and Maharaj made the devotees stay at a house, while he stayed elsewhere with Habaji. In the evening, Shri Ma and the accompanying ladies went to Gangotri temple for darshan. While the other ladies proceeded towards the shrine, the beauty of the Himalaya drew Shri Ma's attention. As she turned around, she and Munni Devi had darshan of Lord Shiva, standing with their backs towards the temple. They were enchanted by the sight. People were surprised to see them standing with their backs to the temple, and after some time, Tularam Shah joined them. However, he could not have the darshan because the clouds once again covered the mountain. A man standing nearby told him that the clouds always covered the mountains. He said a saint had certainly come that day, for whom the mountains had made themselves visible for darshan. From Gangotri, they travelled to Rishikesh. On their way, they stopped at a place called Dharali at about 8 at night. Most of the devotees stayed in a dharmashala. Umadar Shukla spent the night in a tea shop, and Baba rested in a timber storehouse at the back of the tea stall. In the morning, when Girish went for Baba's darshan, he saw a snake and a scorpion fighting on Baba's blanket on his chest. He cried out in fear at the sight. As soon as Baba uncovered himself, the snake and the scorpion moved away. From Dharali, they arrived at Rishikesh and stayed there for around 15 days. One day, Srimati Munni was coming out of the Ganges after having a bath. She and Shrima were standing with their backs towards the river when Munni turned and saw that Tularam Shah had been carried away by the current. She yelled and drew Shrima's attention to the situation. Ma did not know how to swim, but she jumped into the fast-moving current to save her husband. Munni was frightened. She did not know how to swim either, but she decided that if the two of them were drowned, she would drown herself as well. Habba was nearby but was unaware of the situation. He was in deep meditation after his bath. Baba was in his kuti at the time. Munni then saw the impossible happen. Ma pulled Tukaram Shah out of the midstream and brought him to the bank. Munni was wonderstruck. She had forgotten her resolve to drown herself and came back to join them. Tularam Shah did not take much time to recover. Afterwards, when everybody went to Baba, he said, 3 lives were saved today. Siddhi saved her husband. Creating murtis. Baba once went to the house of Ram Ratan Gupta in Kanpur. Gupta's brother was there and invited Baba to his house in Mumbai, making Girish, who was with Baba, note down his Prince Street address. Some years later, Baba went to the south with Shrima, Tularam Shah, his son Ramesh, and Girish. When they arrived in Mumbai, they stayed in Gupta's house on Prince Street. Gupta told about the miracles of a female saint who was well known in South India, and he took Baba, Ramesh, and Girish to her house in the suburb of Bombay. The lady welcomed them and asked them to sit in the room where some of the visitors were sitting. Gupta asked her to give the newly arrived visitors prasad. Lady had two bowls. There was a roli, a mixture of turmeric and lime powder in one, and sandalwood on the other. When she put the roli in person's hand, it turned into sandal powder, and when she did the same with sandal powder, it turned into roli. After this, murtis made out of alloy of 8 metals just appeared in her hand, and she gave them to the devotees as prasad. In the way, she gave Girish a murti of Durga. When it was Ramesh's turn, he silently prayed to Baba that no murti would appear in the woman's hand to give to him. None appeared, and the lady fell unconscious on the floor. Her bodyguards and secretary carried her in another room, and she regained consciousness. Meanwhile, Ramesh became worried and told Baba everything. When the lady reappeared, Baba asked Ramesh to take prasad from her. This time a murti of Lakshmi appeared in her hand, and she gave it to Ramesh. Later she gave a murti of Shiva's family to Baba at Gupta's request. On their return to Bombay, Ramesh and Girish presented their murtis to Baba and asked him how it all happened. Baba said, "It happened." He then tied those murtis to Shrima's archer, loose end of a sari. When Ma opened it later, a fourth murti, that of Ram, had appeared inside by Baba's grace. The four murtis are still kept safely at the India Hotel in Nainital. A pilgrimage postponed. Seeing devotees travelling with Baba to various places, Srimati Shakuntala Shah also had the desire to travel with him, but she was unable to do so since her children were young. Once she met Baba in Allahabad while she was visiting her relative Jagati Babu at Kolonganj. Baba was staying nearby at Church Lane, and she humbly asked him to take her on a pilgrimage to Chitrakoot. Baba tried to postpone it, but she could not hear of it. So Baba got ready and set out by car, taking Shrima and as many devotees as possible. The plan was to do a day trip and return to Allahabad. Nevertheless, the car had hardly travelled 4 kilometers when it broke down. Baba got out and went to a small Hanuman temple situated in a nearby lentil field and sat down. All the devotees joined him there and were delighted by his conversation. Many hours passed, and Balak, the driver, could not find the problem. Baba kept calling her to him, "Hurry up, won't be time to go to Chitrakoot." The driver kept saying that everything seemed to be all right with the car, but it still would not start. He tried his best, but it was all in vain. Meanwhile, back at the Church Lane, Sudhir Mukherjee had become seriously ill. His aunt was very worried and remembered Baba. Baba said to the driver, "Pour a tumbler full of water into the car." As soon as the driver carried out the instruction, the car started and everyone returned to Church Lane. Baba said to Mukherjee's aunt, "You remembered me, and I have come." Travel Leela. In 1949, Baba travelled from Nainital to Kashipur via Haldwani with 9 devotees. When they arrived in Kashipur, they stayed in the house of Kishan Chauhan, who extended great hospitality to them. Throughout the day, all the devotees in Kashipur came with offerings of food and milk for Baba. Baba ate many platefuls of food that day and drank milk in large quantities. Before evening, however, he said he was hungry. He sent his devotee Poon Chandra Joshi to a nearby lane saying, "A woman is waiting there. She has prepared roti for me. Go and bring it." Joshi went into that narrow lane and saw an old woman sitting in an open doorway. As soon as he spoke Papa's name, she happily disappeared inside and returned, bringing a thick roti and some green vegetables. At that moment, Baba himself arrived and, taking that roti in his hand, ate it with great relish. Baba and the group of devotees returned to Haldwani by train from Kashipur. Chaube had purchased a second-class ticket for Baba. By mistake, he bought only 8 third-class tickets for the 9 devotees who accompanied him and gave the tickets to one of them. All of them sat in the second-class compartment with Baba, except for a panda who traveled to the third class compartment of the train. Suddenly, Baba asked the devotees, "How many tickets are there?" A devotee replied that Chaube bought tickets for all. Baba sternly asked, "Where is Pandit's ticket?" They counted them again and realized the mistake. Baba took all the tickets from them and threw them out of the window of the moving train, making all of them ticketless travelers. A special checking squad was checking in the train that day, and the 8 devotees sitting with Baba were government servants. They worried about losing their jobs if they were caught traveling without tickets. At the next station, Baba got out of the train and went to sit with Pandit in the third class compartment, as did the devotees. Just then, Baba put 9 third-class tickets into the hand of a devotee. The train arrived in Lucknow station at night after the connecting train to Haldwani had already left. There was no other train for Haldwani, nor was a bus available, as they thought they would have to spend the night at the station. However, as Baba got down into the platform, a Muslim truck driver standing nearby noticed him wrapped in his blanket. He stared at Baba with great curiosity. Baba also looked at him and said, "Your wife is ill. You are sad. You have taken her to Bareilly and other places and still there is no improvement. Do not worry. She will be fine." He listened to Baba in quiet amazement and then humbly asked him, "Baba, where do you want to go? My truck is standing outside." He then took everyone to Haldwani in his truck. Ram's name inscribed on trees. On one occasion, many devotees traveled to Chitrakoot by bus. Having visited Chitrakoot, Hanuman Dhara, Anisuya, Spastik Shila, and other places during the day, they began their journey to Allahabad. At Kamanath, Baba sent all the devotees to see the Ramkulu trees under which Lord Ram rested, and he himself stayed at the car. The devotees were surprised to see the name of Ram inscribed on the leaves and branches of those trees. On their return, they expressed their amazement to Baba and said, "I will accept it to be true if Ramesh endorses it." Sri Ma's son Ramesh was skeptical by nature. He went there and observed those trees in minute details. He also scraped a piece of bark from one of the trees and examined it. He was surprised to see the name of Ram inscribed even underneath the peeled bark. Journey to the South. In 1973, Maharaj travelled to South with Sri Jivantama, Ramesh Shah, and many others. They arrived in Madras on 9 Jan and went to stay at Sindhi Dharmshala. The room that Baba pointed was locked, so the luggage was placed on the veranda in front of them. When the devotees met the managers and requested him to get the room open, the manager refused, saying they were already reserved for a person coming from Vrindavan. He also made it clear that the other rooms were occupied and suggested that they seek accommodation elsewhere. When the devotees explained the situation to Baba, he insisted, "I will only stay in these rooms." The devotees arranged some bedding on the veranda so that Baba could rest, but the manager arrived and expressed his displeasure. He asked them to vacate the veranda and then left. Still, Baba did not leave. He said, "Nobody will come for these rooms. Pay no heed to the manager." The day was drawing to a close, so the devotees once again requested the manager to open the rooms. At that very moment, a telegram arrived from the person in Vrindavan requesting a manager to cancel his reservation. The manager then opened the door for Baba with pleasure. When in Madras, Baba took the devotees to visit the Vaishnavi Devi temple, which is located about 23 kilometers from the city. 2 taxis were taken. Baba got into one taxi and devotees got into the another taxi. Baba's car usually led the other, but the time the devotees' car led. Consequently, they passed the temple and drove on about 9 kilometers further. Baba followed them until he reached a vast, barren, and desolate place and then stopped. The other taxi also stopped. Walking around, Baba said, "I did not realize, but we have passed the temple." In actuality, Baba sanctified that piece of land by stopping there. They all got into taxi again and drove back to Vaishnavi Devi temple with Baba's taxi on the lead. On 19 January, Hukum Chand from Baba's Murti had installed Baba's Murti on the very piece of land on which Baba and the devotees had stopped all those years before. Hukum Chand had not been with Maharaj when he and his devotees stopped there, nor had he heard about the trip. Still, he unknowingly chose the same site that Maharaj had sanctified years before he built the Veerpuram ashram. temple.